Hello, it's Andrew Eborn here, just to say thank you so much to everybody who joined us this morning live when we walked through the streets of London, taking you by the hand and showing you some of the iconic Bee Gees places. What we realised is that some of you around the world, with so many people phoning in, I think we broke the internet. Hurrah! Always a joy. Anyway, we've got some fantastic footage, be fantastic stuff. We'll have a look, see if we can play around. We're going to get that up on Octopus TV, and then we can add some soundtrack as well, because that was a little taste of the sort of places that we might be able to visit.
That's a good idea.
And the places that we can visit with you, the iconic places for Bee Gees fans. And we had with us the legendary broadcaster Mike Read. We also had RJ Gibb. And RJ was telling us about his father's life, and also the important parts within London to make that make sense. What I'm going to do now is going to take you all the way down to the Bomber Command. So those of you who would like to stay with me on this journey, we can have a look at that sort of side. And then I can probably get RJ and Mike back on the phone as well. In the meantime, let me tell you about this part of London, because this is the wonderful Mayfair. We had a look at the American Embassy behind us beforehand, and all sorts of principles. What I love about today, and I'll take you through this way because it's a nice way to go. You can go past the Grosvenor House. What I love about this sort of side is that together we have seen some fantastic sights. Even if you didn't hear us, we've done some fantastic sights. Can you hear me at the moment? Is there anybody there? I can see lots of people all tuning in. But sometimes I think in these extraordinary times we find a little bit of patience is all good. Hello, Tina, can you hear me? Is it all good? There you go. And we've got Linda as well. She's all there. So fantastic. So we did have RJ and Mike on the phone, and we were talking to them about all things to do with the Bee Gees. We visited some of the iconic sites within London, and on a regular basis we're going to sort all sorts of things out. Hello, you can hear me, Heather. How nice to hear you as well. And one of the interesting things about these Facebook Live sessions is that I think because we had so many millions of people around the world who were all tuning in to listen at the same time about all the fantastic places that the Bee Gees went and saw. And we started off at the IBC studios, which are right there on Portland Place, right by my home. We then went all the way up to Langham Hotel, and in the Langham Hotel, nice to hear you too. Hello, Tina. It's extraordinary. We were just saying, I think so many people were so excited to come on this glorious journey with me, that they're all phoning me. And every time somebody phoned, what happened? I think it cut off the sound. So don't worry, we'll do it again. And we've got the idea that I think those are the fantastic places to visit. And if there are particular places we can go inside, and it gave you a little flavour of what London's about. In addition to that, so we started this morning bright and breezy at 11:11, 1-1, and the reason I picked that is that the Bee Gees had so many number ones, they never wrote a number two. That was their philosophy. They always wanted to write number ones, and the principle was exactly that. So we thought we'd launch today at 1-1-1-1, and we've got some great footage of the iconic places that we've managed to visit around the world with lots of you in tow. And so we started, as I say, at IBC Studios, and Lonnie Donegan recorded My Old Man's a Dustman very early on. And the Bee Gees actually covered that track at IBC. We then went all the way to the Langham Hotel, where the Bee Gees had many of their iconic interviews, and they spoke to different journalists and so on and so forth in the Langham Hotel. From the Langham Hotel we went over to the BBC itself, and I gave you a guided tour. We went into the studios, we looked at the BBC television, we looked at BBC Radio 1, and I was joined by the legendary broadcaster Mike Read, and Mike spoke about his time with the Bee Gees and his experiences and his friendship, his close friendship, in particular with RJ's father, Robin Gibb. And we spoke about that and the different work that they did. We then went over to the first cinema in the UK, which was the Regent Street Theatre and the Regent Street Cinema. And there was a special plaque to Pink Floyd. And we had a fantastic look inside there. It was the first taste that the British public got of cinema, and fantastic scenes that people would see where iconically they looked at the screen, had no idea what the technology was, and the basic principle is they thought when they saw a train coming towards them on the screen that they were all going to get run over by the train, so they all ran out of the cinema screaming, and there's some great footage of that sort of stuff. If you're joining us live, KTT and GSI, right here in the heart of London. I'm taking you on this iconic trip. We've had RJ Gibb, we've had the wonderful broadcaster as well, Mike Read, has been joining us. Over here is the ballroom, and a lot of these places are hoping to be opening up very, very shortly. China Tangs over here like this. Some fantastic restaurants, and all of them are desperate to get back and connected. And what's happening at the moment is London is slowly opening up. But as I've shown you a few times on these broadcasts, is that even though the shops are open, very few people are still venturing out. And we've had a declaration a few days ago, as I predicted, by the Prime Minister, that London will be opening up again on July the 4th, Independence Day. And I very much hope that people will venture out, because as you've been on these trips with me, you'll see that London itself is definitely open for business. There are lots of people here, and they're working on the premise that we can do things to make that make sense. But we do need you as a customers. So this is the hotel, fantastic. Alain Ducasse, this is the Dorchester Hotel, where we've been to many an event here. All these places are obviously shut up at the moment, and they're looking for customers to make that make sense. Right next door to the Dorchester is a lovely little coffee shop, which we might be able to pop into. This is what we call clickbait at this time of the morning. I could do with a coffee about now. We've been on the road for a little bit. Sound or no sound, but it looks beautiful. And how gorgeous is that? See, isn't that lovely and pink? And they're working on it. How's business? You all right? Don't get up, don't get up. You can sit down. You're live on Octopus TV. I just want to say hello, and I was telling people how wonderful it is there. How's your business been? Has it been good? Bit quiet? Sometimes quiet. How long have you been open? 3 months. So you didn't shut during the shutdown? You were able to serve takeaways? Yeah. And people are gradually coming back, because you're right next to the Dorchester Hotel, and I've been there with many famous guests that always would come and have your coffee, because you serve fantastic coffee and it's really good. You're joining us live on Octopus TV. Nice to see you. Take care. Be safe, okay? Fantastic. There you go. So that's next time you come to London, we'll have a cup of coffee together, and that could be quite glorious. London's being dug up at the moment. Workers are returning to work, and summer season is upon us. And in the summer season, that's what happens. We get people coming around and digging up the roads to make it easier for life to open up. So this morning we had a tour. I was talking to you about the BBC and how we popped in there. After the BBC, we went to the Regent Street cinema, and we saw the plaque for Pink Floyd. After the plaque for Pink Floyd, we went down to see the Speakeasy Club. And the Speakeasy Club is on Margaret Street, and it's an iconic club. Many of you will know, if you've heard of the Speakeasy Club, that was where many of the celebrities of the day would go and have a rest and a libation or 2 or 3 or 4 or 27. On 48 Margaret Street was the Speakeasy Club, otherwise known as the Speak. And you'll remember the promo video for New York mining disaster, 1941. That film, the promo film, was made at the Speakeasy, and you can have a look at that. So one of the iconic places, the Beatles would go there, Bee Gees would go there and celebrate after the various things. After that, we went down to London Palladium, where the Bee Gees had their 1973 concert, and Saturday Night Fever. The press conference was there, and they also had the world premiere of Saturday Night Fever, and that was stunning. It also represented London Palladium, sadly the last performance that Robin Gibb gave After that, we went down to past Liberty, and Liberty was founded 145 years ago in 1875 by Arthur Lazenby Liberty, and he started with a little gift from his father of £2,000, and it then became one of the most iconic stores, not just in London, but in the world. If you're joining us live all the way here in the heart of London on Old Park Lane, and we're making our way down to the memorial that Robin funded and helped raise a lot of money for. And finally we went, just before all of that, we went to Carnaby Street, and on Carnaby Street we looked at a lot of the tailors. John Stephen was a tailor. He's known as the £1 million mod and the king of Carnaby Street. In fact, he claimed that Carnaby Street is his creation, and he feels about it the same way that Michelangelo felt about the beautiful statues that he created. And John Stephen, 28th of August 1934, he passed away on the 1st of February 2004. And Barry and Robin and Maurice used to pop down to Carnaby Street and get their clothes finished and picked for them particular styles to earn the accolade of best dressed man. Thanks a lot to John Stevens. And our final stop this morning was at 67 Brook Street, which was the home of the Robert Stigwood organisation, RSO. And RSO basically is where we saw the plaque for the Bee Gees and things like that. So there you go. Thank you, Anne. We can hear us now. I think the problem is, what happened is that we had a lot of people on the line, millions of people around the world, and what we found is a lot of people were phoning in. And because they were phoning in, it meant that they were cutting off the sound. So the great thing is we'll mic everybody up next time. We'll also see if we can probably get the soundtrack back somewhere. But we have some very interesting footage. Now what I'm going to do, because I like to spoil you, and it's quite appropriate, and it's good walk, and because you've been so patient and stayed with us on the journey, and it's a special for GSI and Marion, I thought I'd take you down to the Bombers Memorial that Robin helped ensure was put in place, and it's just over the road here. It's quite a tricky road, this, because you have to wingle your way over. I've also got to go underground, which probably means I'll lose you for a bit, but let me see if I can find a safe way where I can cut over here without getting run over, and you'll get to the other side of the road over here like this. I'm probably going to have to go a very secure, very roundabout way in order to get you over there. But Anne, thank you very much for joining us. Marion, thank you very much. Hello, it's so good to hear you. I know all about it. We were just saying that because lots of people phoned in, and we had several thousand, tens and tens of thousands of people all tuned in on the YouTube channel, and they'll be back a little bit later, but on Facebook rather. And because so many people tuned in and were making phone calls, and this is on my glorious phone, we had the difficulty of getting the sound as well, but we can sort these things out. It's not an issue. I wanted to show you where we are, so you can have a look over here like this. This is the map, and very helpfully on the map it says you are here, the Intercontinental Hotel. We have the Wellington Arch and the Wellington Memorial, Australian War Memorial, and the house, the Lanesborough Hotel, is over there. And we're going to go down. It's a special thing, which is very pertinent for Robin, was the Bombers War Memorial over there. And I'm going to have to take you underground, and because I go underground, it means I might lose some of you. If I do lose you, or I can go the long way. I'll tell you what, let's go the long way. I don't want to lose you. You're doing so well. Maybe I can risk my life for you. There you go. I will cross the road here. If this is the last I heard of you, just remember that this is all done especially for Marion and GSI. No, they're not going to let me do that. I'm going to go down here. Here we go. Park Lane subway. If I do lose you, I will be back with you very, very shortly. And we're going to go down. It's nice and cool down here. That's the great thing about it. Hello, Karen. How are you? So we're in Park Lane. If it does get cut off, I'll be able to tell, and I'll get you back straight after this. This is the Ritz. Be careful, Anne. Thank you, Anne. We like it. We try to be careful. They always say, be good, if not, be careful. So fantastic. Oh, there we are. I've managed to keep you. I'll tell you what, I should stay down here. It's so cool. This is one of, talking of cool, I'll tell you what's been really cool. What's been really cool is having you lot with us today, and thank you for being so patient. Thank you in particular to Marion for sorting everything out with GSI and for KTT. We also had the wonderful Mike Read, who was with us, and who was recounting some of his tales, but only to me by the sounds of it, because I think the rest of you couldn't hear him, but we'll get Mike back, so don't worry about that. And I had RJ as well, RJ Gibb, son of the legendary Robin Gibb, was with me as well. And we've been talking about all things Bee Gees and their glorious life in London, and I took you to some of the most iconic places, all the way from the very beginning with the recording studio at Portland Place, where the very first recordings were made. I then took you along to the Langham Hotel. We had a look, we went inside, had a few cocktails together at the Langham Hotel, and after that we went over to the BBC, took you inside the BBC radio, and we went upstairs to see the broadcasters, said hello to all the broadcasters. They're all high-fiving. We love it, they're such a friendly bunch, they're all good. I then took you down to Regent Street Cinema, the oldest cinema in London, where set up in the 1800s. They had the very first experience of cinema, which meant that people were screaming because they thought the train, which was depicted from the Lumiere brothers, they thought that was real. And as a result, they went round screaming from that Regent Street cinema in those early days. And what happened is we then went on to the Speakeasy Club, and the Speakeasy Club was on Margaret Street, and that's where New York mining disaster, the promotional video for that, was recorded on that place. We then wandered down a bit further. I popped into some of the stores on Oxford Street and the stores on Regent Street, and even though those stores are open, you would have seen with me that basically we had all sorts of things that, yes, never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. And you didn't see the cocktails. That's the bit where we had to keep them quiet. That's why you couldn't have any sound, hear me slurping. I think they said, you better not let them have any sound, and we're putting a special video anyway. They only want to see Bee Gees stuff. They don't want to see you drinking cocktails. And I think there was a bit of merit to that. I think that's probably right. So what we then did, after those fantastic cocktails and that 27-course meal that I had in the Langham, we basically went ahead and walked down towards the London Palladium, where the Bee Gees famously performed, and also where we had the last performance of Robin Gibb was at the Palladium. And from the Palladium we then went on to Carnaby Street, and I took you down and we saw John Stevens' place at number 5 Carnaby Street, and we shared some experiences there. And what I love, and this is the great thing about it, what I love is that you, the fans, you can be our voice, even when we don't have the ears of the others, and even though we had a fantastic commentary from both Mike and RJ, and we'll find a way of making sure we can repeat that commentary for those who didn't get it the first time. What I love is that you, the fans, you know so much because you suggested this glorious route. I walked down from my home in Regent's Park. Portland Place is literally a couple of minutes walk from my home, so we can regularly wander down there, which is brilliant. So all very good. And I'm walking now to the memorial, and the memorial was built with the generous support of the Lord Ashcroft, John Caldwell, Richard Desmond, John Dooley, Robin Gibb, and the Heritage Foundation. If you have a look here, you can see over here, we can go in nice and tight, and you can see that this is where a lot of the fans said, well, bring us down here and we can have a look behind us at the Heritage Foundation and where this is. And this memorial, it was built with the generous support of Lord Ashcroft, John Caldwell, James Dooley, Robin Gibb, and the Heritage Foundation, and the Bomber Command, and the families and friends who died. And it's a very fitting memorial for them. And if we have a look inside, I know many of you wanted to share those particular memories. And this was very important to Robin. And this memorial is dedicated to the 55,573 airmen from the United Kingdom, British Commonwealth and Allied nations who served in RAF Bomber Command and lost their lives over the course of the Second World War. And this was close to Robin's heart. As we walked past, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth unveiled this memorial on the 28th of June, and that was the year of her Diamond Jubilee in 2012. And whilst we're doing this, I'll see if I can get RJ on the phone. If I can get RJ on the phone, then he can tell us a little experience. But some of you, you're texting in, as appropriate. Hello, Anne. Now on my list of my next trip to London. Well done, Anne. Well, very good. It's some fantastic stuff, and we will keep you company. Let's see if I can get RJ. Okay, we're here at the Bomber Command, and I'm delighted to say the memorial was dedicated to the 55,573 airmen from the United Kingdom, British Commonwealth and Allied nations who served in RAF Bomber Command and lost their lives over the course of the Second World War. I'm joined on the line by legendary broadcaster Mike Read. Tell us about Robin's passion for ensuring that this memorial was erected.
Yeah, well, it all started back when Robin was president and I was vice president of the Heritage Foundation. And we used to invite a lot of the veterans to the lunches. It was the only time they could see each other, really. They came, we put them all on the same table. And one time they said, you know, there are sort of memorials to everybody, but not the 55,500 Allied aircrew. And we said, okay. And so it started, and Alec Lom, who wrote for, I think, the Telegraph at the time, did a piece. I did the first thing on stage. We raised £200, I remember, to put towards a memorial. And so it went on, and a few years later, Robin and myself were interviewed by Sky and BBC on the patch of green where you're standing now, which is nothing but grass and trees. And they said, are you sure there's going to be a memorial here? We said, yep, that's what's going to happen. And they couldn't quite believe it. And we were standing on this bit of grass, and I thought, I can remember this day. We're standing here, and for future generations and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe thousands, there's going to be a memorial on this site, which is quite a wonderful piece of history. Robin's name is carved on the side, which is lovely. I went up in my hard hat and was allowed to chisel one of Winston Churchill's letters on a quote that he's got up there, so played my part on that as well. Liam O'Connor was the architect, and he was a devotee, maybe even an acolyte of Aston Webb. Aston Webb designed the facade of Buckingham Palace, Four Corners of Oxford Circus, Admiralty Arch, a lot of other places around there. And he liked the traditional style, so he was a devotee of Aston Webb. So he liked that traditional style, so that's the style in which he did it. And then we had an evening where Philip Webb, who actually sculpted the soldiers there, the Air Force guys that came back, he showed us the models, and then they turned out to be the 9-foot-high airmen. So we were there for the opening day with the Queen and all the royal family in 2012, and it was a momentous day.
Absolutely stunning. And how long did it take from the initial idea to actually getting the monument erected?
It was a few years, and it needed a boost from people like Michael Ashcroft and what have you. The people came in. I remember we had a dinner one night, Robert and myself, and Michael and two of the other people who put a lot of money into it. It needed that final boost. I mean, our initial rumblings were good. We sort of started pushing the car, but in the end we needed more help, and it got bigger and bigger, and it was amazing. And in the end, then I remember writing to Jeremy Hunt saying, look, you know, can you not put the VAT on this? And, you know, all got in the paper. So we were all fighting like mad. And I think one of the poignant things was some of the vets saying, look, you know, I'll remortgage my home to help fund this. And you thought, well, that's very powerful. So, but in the end, we got there. I mean, we got there, and it's there. And I was appalled the other day to see that someone had thrown some white paint all over it. And I thought, you know, where are our leaders? What would Churchill have said about that? You know, someone someone should stand up and say, what the hell are you doing? Or the CCTV footage, but nobody's standing up saying anything. I think it's disgraceful that those guys, that's a tribute to, fought for the freedom of these idiots to throw paint over them. Madness.
And freedom is the sure possession of those alone who have the courage to defend it, said Pericles, and that's carved into the statue. And the fighters are our salvation, but the bombers alone provide the means of victory, says Winston Churchill in September 1940. And it's quite appropriate that it's just over the road from the RAF Club.
Yes, it's ideal, really, isn't it? It was a corner of Green Park that wasn't being used. It's just probably 100 yards along to the west of where the Tyburn Brook, the Tyburn stream, flows underneath Piccadilly and across Green Park. And Green Park itself, full of history. It was a famous place for dueling back in the day. People used to go there to settle scores and have early morning duels. So a lot of history in Green Park and Piccadilly. And it's there it is, right on the corner of Hyde Park Corner. It couldn't be more central. And as you rightly say, right across from the RAF Club, so they can see it, look out the window, and think, yeah, there it is. So it was a lot of people involved in it, a lot of work, and Robin would have been proud, really sad that he couldn't be there on the day.
Yes, because it wasn't long after then that actually he passed a month and 8 days beforehand, because the Queen unveiled it on the 28th of June, on the very year that he passed, and he passed on the 20th of May that year.
Yeah.
What would he have said if he'd seen it?
He'd have been blown away. I mean, he was just, thought it was absolutely wonderful. I mean, he'd have seen the workings. I mean, he was there with me with a hard hat on when it was all going up and being built. But the actual day with the Queen and all the members of the royal family, and probably more than that for Robin, all the vets there. It was a very hot day. Some of them passed out. Some of them were overcome with emotion. There were a lot of tears from the vets that day, and I think Robin would have shared those with a lot of them.
Well, Mike, it's been a real pleasure joining us today. For those who just joined us, tell them what they missed, because we've been on a tour of, effectively, Bee Gees London. Give us some of the highlights.
Okay, well, you started at IBC, which Leonard Plugg started back in 1931 as Radio Normandy, came over here as a studio, started as a radio station. You whizzed down the road to the Langham Hotel, where there used to be a recording studio that the Bee Gees used quite a bit. Across the road to the BBC, where, of course, their first single in the first BBC chart was New York Mining Disaster. I think that was one of the very first records played on Radio 1. And then you went down to Wogan House, named after Terry Morgan, of course, who had played many BT records in his time. You then whizzed down to Margaret Street and Speakeasy, where New York Mining Disaster video, or promo film as it was then, they didn't do videos, a promo film was made. And then going on down to Argyle Street, just south of Oxford Street, the London Palladium, where Robin did his last ever performance with the soldiers. And he wasn't well, but he insisted on being there. And of course the Bee Gees played there on many, many occasions as well. And then you scooted down Regent Street, and as far as I remember, whizzed down over Bond Street, where Chapel Studio was, and then on towards the Blue Clark at Stigwood's offices, and at various other places on the way, stopping at Tim Wright's and Andrew Lloyd-Webber's first office, going past the place the Queen was born. So all in all, a good tour. And of course you went to Liberty, across the road from the Palladium, and just across the road from there in Great Marlborough Street was the old Decca Studios. That was the Decca HQ in the West End. A lot of history there if you know where to look.
And what a joy. We even stopped down at Carnaby Street, where the famous tailor John Stevens used to have his offices at number 5, and we stopped in there, and he was the king of Carnaby Street, and that's why the brothers are so well dressed. I think Barry one year won best dressed man, and Robin and Maurice used to go along as well, and it's got such rich history all on our doorstep. And the great thing is, I've lost about 4 stone doing this walk, but we've been accompanied by the wonderful Bee Gees fans around the world, and with great support from GSI and Marion Adrianson, who does tremendous work for the fans. And I think it's a very special moment where we can sort of take them through a little bit of London as London starts opening up, because what you would have seen is that a lot of the shops are open, but they're empty. And what I find extraordinary, Mike, is that we're still crippled by fear. And I think when you're standing at the Bomber Command and we start talking about fear and London opening up, we should be out there, shouldn't we?
Well, we're talking about an unseen enemy here as opposed to a visual enemy. All I'm pleased is that as your personal trainer, now that got you down from 24 stone to 20 stone, as your personal trainer, I think, you send the checks to me.
Absolutely. I tell you so, just my left leg, I think, Mike. I think, although I have to say, I am half the man I used to be. And certainly, there's a lot of me left on the streets of London. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. It was a fantastic tour. I'm so pleased you were able to join us. And we very much look forward to the next one. But for now, Mike Read, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew.
Take care. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. So that's the legendary broadcaster Mike Read, who joined us for our fantastic tour of London. We will be there on a regular basis. If you do want to join us on these trips or you have other suggestions, let us know.
Right.
And you're joining us here at Bomber Command with me, Andrew Eborn. If you can hear us this time, please let me know, because that would be very, very helpful. Because I know previously when lots of people were phoning in, we managed to lose a little bit of sound, but we can correct that. So if you can hear me, let me know, because I've got on the line, I've got RJ Gibb as well. Fantastic producer. Hey, there we go. Heather is saying that she can hear us, and fantastic. So, good stuff. So I've got RJ on the line now as well. We've had a really fascinating day today. RJ, we're at the Bomber Command now. Tell us about the importance of the Bomber Command for you and your father.
Well, when my father became president of the Heritage Foundation, he wanted to make a difference to he wanted to put forward projects, I should say, that tied up some loose ends, because there were a lot of things that weren't done that should have been done over the course of history. One of those things, of course, was it was actually brought on by a conversation that my father, myself, and David Graham had about the Animals in War memorial, and we were saying, well, it's a poignant memorial. It's nice, for to commemorate all the animals that have sacrificed over the years, but it's incredible that the unit in the Second World War that lost, that had the most men give the ultimate sacrifice, the freedoms we now enjoy, had not been commemorated, did not have a medal struck up for them, and so he spearheaded a campaign, my father, to pressure the MOD to finally put up a memorial, and not just any memorial, a fitting memorial. Originally, it was supposed to. They were trying to cut corners and say, "Oh, we should have a small statue," and he was adamant. No, it has to be large, and larger than life. Has to be something that people are going to want to come and see. And of course, now it's become the most visited memorial in London.
And the details, we're just looking at the memorial now, the details of every stroke, the figures themselves, I think they're about 9 feet tall, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah, then people come from all over the world, they leave flags, and it's incredible.
And as Winston Churchill said, he's been in the news a lot, the fighters are our salvation, but the bombers alone provide the means of victory.
That's right. Although, see, the thing is, there's a bit of a love-hate relationship, I think, with Bomber Command and Churchill, because Churchill championed them all through the war. He knew, as you say, that was the key to victory. But at the same time, because of the pressure after the war, there was a lot of talk of bombing campaigns that were done, but I mean, bombing campaigns done on both sides that unfortunately caused a lot of collateral damage, and the problem is that was focused on in order to make a pivotal decision not to give them any commemoration or medal or strike up a medal. Whereas the fighter all got recognized, including the brave soldiers from overseas who came to fight, like in the Polish squadron, and I mean they all got recognized except for the boys at Bomber Command.
And as Pericles said, freedom is the sure possession of those alone who have the courage to defend it. And I think what's those who are joining us now, we have Marion and the several thousand, tens, hundreds of thousands of Bee Gees fans, millions around the world. Tell us, we've been on a tour today, seeing some of the iconic places on behalf of KTT Legacy and good old Marion and GSI. Tell us about some of the places that we visited.
Sorry, Andrew. So I couldn't hear you a bit there, but I got the gist of.
No, I was just saying that we started off this morning at 11:11, nice and early. It's at the International Broadcasting Company on 35 Portland Place, and that was bought by Chas Chandler and renamed the Portland Recording Studio. And it started as an independent radio broadcast in the late 50s, and we were finding out about how important that was to your father and your uncles, because they recorded many of their hits there. And one of the very first hits that was recorded there was Lonnie Donegan's My Old Man's a Dustman. And you were telling us about how your uncles recorded that song. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, it was one of the first songs they performed on I think it was one of the television shows. They sang My Old Man's Dustman, and a few other pieces. But yeah, no, that's the amazing thing, that after looking up to the groups like that and forming a skiffle band, as they say, that they eventually recorded in that exact room.
And
so
it is quite incredible, and they had a number of different
I mean the albums are endless. Odessa, Trafalgar, Chain Reaction, Heartbreaker, all these amazing songs were
recorded in that very building. And what we're looking for, and there isn't one yet, is a plaque. That's the extraordinary thing, where we don't have a plaque yet up there, and that's one of the things that we might be looking at. After the recording studios, we went along to the Langham Hotel. Tell us about your memories of the Langham Hotel.
The Langham Hotel, I mean, my father, they've used that hotel for many trips into London, where they had to stay and record, and they didn't have their. This is after they left the place where they actually used to work out, which was one of them was near Montpellier Street, so it's on Montpellier Square. So once they had uprooted and moved to the country, they started to use the Langham Hotel when they would come into town. And of course, the Langham has such a rich history that has to do with broadcasting as well. It was one of the first places that Broadcasting House was considered to be placed, and of course that was before it was moved to Portland. The whole plan.
And quite an extraordinary place. And then after the Langham, we went to Broadcasting House itself. We went up to the BBC, saw the television studios, and we also saw.
Before we get off the Langham, there is one more thing I can remember. It was used actually during the Second World War. It was used as a station for the British Army. So it's got a very rich history. Yeah.
And a fantastic place. And as I was saying, it has one of the best cocktail bars in the world. Yes. And I went in there, and just while you were offline for a bit, they looked after me very well. I had a 27-course meal.
Did you make sure it was the best?
I was. I had to double check, and I wasn't quite sure.
Double check.
And I think the first 20 or so cocktails, I wasn't quite sure, but they started to get better. I don't know what that was. Maybe they kept the best till last. Maybe that's what happened. They always look after us well. Now, I tell you what, you and I, when we have late at night after we've done the shows and things like that, we like to find some of these late night spots, don't we? And that's certainly one of the late night spots that we used to go to. And your father used to go to a fantastic restaurant in Knightsbridge called Montpellier. And
Oh yes, yes.
That unfortunately,
Montpellier.
Montpellier. He used to go to Montpellier on Fridays, but Montpellier was his favourite one, and that was the Italian restaurant. Tell us about that and your fond memories of that.
Well, that was one of the oldest, sorry, not oldest, but longest running Italian restaurant in London, and it's it always kept pictures and all the people who had visited there and hung out there. It was a spot that Frank Sinatra used to love to visit every time he was in London. So the Rat Pack were always in there. My father fell in love with it when he was living, as I said before, on Montpellier Square, and that's where they also did quite a lot of recording. There's no plaque there, which that's another place where it should be recognized. But and just 100 yards, 100 meters, from there is Montpelliana's restaurant on Montpellier Street. It's gone now. Actually, it's sadly. I loved it too. It was an amazing restaurant. It just shut down. Just right before the COVID-19 pandemic, it shut down.
And it is very, very sad. I think that the business of that sort of side is quite tricky, isn't it? And getting restaurants back and getting people back on the street to make that make sense. I mean, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what we found today, RJ, is that when we were wandering around London, and I took people into the Nike store, we went down Carnaby Street to have a look at the fantastic places there. The alarming thing, even though such glorious, rich history, the alarming thing for me was that it was deserted. It was only, well, maybe it's because I was wandering around the streets, people had been warned.
First time I've heard of Carnaby being deserted.
I know, it was quite extraordinary. But we went down there, and talk to me about the importance of Carnaby Street then to your father and your uncles.
Actually, I keep doing this. We're talking about Carnaby Street, but there's something I remember about Montpelliano. I should tell you just before we forget and move on. At Montpelliano, shortly after my father passed away. This was about maybe an hour, 2 hours after. We wanted to go to his favorite place in London. So we went over. We called them up, and they had been shut for an hour already. This was like 1 a.m, and they said no, come in, come see us. So we arrived, and all the staff, the waiters, the owner, they were all lined up in this line, and they all came up to us individually and gave us a hug and a kiss on each cheek, and it was really, really poignant and really nice of them. And then they set us down at his favorite table. And of course, all the disc jockeys were playing his music because they just found out. So that came through on the radio that was playing in the restaurant. And they said, do you want us to turn it off? We said, no. It's we always love to hear his voice. So that's just one of the more poignant memories I have of.
And you're right. I mean, your father instilled such love from virtually everybody he met. Even for the first time, he was one of those amazing characters that people felt as though he had time just for them, and that's a very special attribute.
No, it's incredible. I mean, as I've said before, he just couldn't understand or fathom why anyone would turn their back on their fans or not give them the time of day to give them an autograph or a photograph or to take a picture with them. He heard stories of other celebrities snubbing their fans, and he just couldn't understand it because, of course, to him the fans were everything. You as an artist, you have no appreciation and you have no success without them. They are the lifeblood of your a success.
And that's why it's so great that Marion's doing what she's doing with GSI and the amazing fans around the world. And in particular, what we'd like to say is that, Marion suggested to me, she saw me going on these early morning walks where I would just chat along to a few people who cared to join me. She said, oh, wouldn't it be great if we start doing could you pop down to the Special Bombers Memorial? And I thought, well, okay, we'll do that, but maybe there's a whole lot of Bee Gees London that RJ can guide us through. And so what we've done today, which is the start of something rather special, is we'll take you through KTT and GSI to a lot of these amazing places. And we did, as you say, we started the recording studios. We went to Langham's, which we'll go to another restaurant, but we went to the Langham Hotel and we experienced the fantastic cocktails there. We also went to the BBC, and the BBC not just for the TV but for the radio, and now named Wogan House after the legendary broadcaster Terry Wogan. And after that we popped down, we went past the Regent Street cinema, the very first cinema in the UK, where people, you remember RJ, ran out screaming the first film that they saw because it looked so real.
What's that?
Well, they had at the Regent Street cinema, the first film that they had was by the Lumiere brothers, and they showed a train coming towards the camera, and so people thought the train was coming towards them, and they all bolted. So that was the first experience of cinema, and there's a plaque to Pink Floyd over there. I brought you, RJ, all the way along here, as those of you who are regular viewers of this particular programme, you'll recognise this as my country retreat. This is my garden shed, otherwise known as Buckingham Palace. And here, yeah, you must have been here a few times. Certainly, I'm sure your father has. Tell me about Buckingham Palace, RJ.
Well, apart from just going there and having a knees up every once in a while.
Ah, we know, sure.
No, we used to go. You know, probably the most memorable moment I have there is when he got his investiture, you know, for his Commander of the British Empire, CBE, and I remember we went. We went into the lobby area, and there was the bathrooms, which to anyone who knows the music industry, sort of like the macabre tidbits of the music industry and the things that are kind of put around as rumors and such. But I mean, this is true. Actually, we found out that it's true from good source. I won't say, but when we were there, I saw the toilets, and I thought, that's where the Beatles had actually, when they came for their investiture, I think they were getting their OBEs. They decided, well, you know, only get one chance to do this, so they went into the toilet and they smoked a joint.
Ah, no! Good heavens! It's all been revealed here, live on KTT and GSI. So I can even see the toilets here. They're letting us through the gates. That's very kind. So we're here live at Buckingham Palace, and I'm showing you now the balcony where the royal family come out on those special occasions and they wave to the crowds. And the crowds gathered today, if you have a look, there's only me. There's nobody here. On a glorious day, I'm here, says, hello, you're live on KTT, Octopus TV. We have one person, that's it. I never in my life, until I came a few days ago, have I seen this place so empty. It is quite extraordinary. What do you think, RJ?
Wow, and this is, yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I wonder why. I mean, a lot of people are coming out now, especially in the UK. They, you know, they take the guidelines very, very seriously, like to the book, to the letter, and as soon as they said, you know, we're relaxing the laws, you know, let people come to each other's houses, but keeping social distance, they all started pouring into the field across from where my house is. You know, we have a field on the opposite side, and they're all having these huge picnics and parties, and it's extraordinary. And you know, in the town, there's about, I'd say, because there's about half the people still believe that we should stay in lockdown. We shouldn't. We should wait till it dissipates further. And there's others who think that there should be a herd immunity. So you've got this sort of dichotomy in society, and so I'd say there's about half as many people as you would see in town, but they've all started coming out.
Well, you say half as many people. I mean,
to see more at Buckingham Palace.
Well, I would have thought. Yeah, well, I'm here. I'm live. What's the time, RJ? Just to prove that it's live.
It is 1:21.
1:21 as you join us on the 25th of June, 2020. This is Andrew Eborn and RJ Gibb live here for KTT and GSI outside one of the world's most popular tourist attractions, Buckingham Palace, and it is deserted. It's quite incredible. I mean, we were talking earlier about the experience with the Beatles and how your father and your uncles used to get on. Bit of rivalry as well, I imagine. How did they get on with the Beatles?
Yeah, there was a bit of, of course, because they both had come through Brian Epstein, who had received their demos from their father, and that was NEMS, NEMS, which was his shop and establishment. It was NEMS that linked up with Robert Stigwood to make RSO their hub, and quite an eclectic hub it was, with everyone from Andrew Lloyd Webber to Elton John did some things with them, and the Bee Gees, the Who, and of course the Beatles. So they would see each other at RSO, and my father had always looked up to, he loved the Beatles, and he loved especially John, his voice and his.
Well, probably the mischievous sense of humour. I mean, John rather like you and I and your father. We always say we always have the same sense of humour. That's fun. But John, I mean, John was the mischievous one, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he used to call my father Gibby.
Right.
Hey, Gibby. And I mean, there's a shortly after he came out with Imagine, John is sitting there he's speaking to a reporter, and there's a great video clip of this, and he's holding Robin's father's album, and Saved by the Bell,
right?
His other solo hits. So it's amazing. He's just sitting there with Robin's Rain in his hand, So they really had a mutual respect for each other's music, and it really. My father was very saddened by what happened, the events. One, when he was sadly shot, of course, at the Dakota building. That was just horrible.
Yeah, and it does make it sort of real. It makes everything, because people always think the people in the public eye have a sort of special immortality, don't they? And they think that they don't suffer in the same way as regular folk suffer. And the fact of the matter is, if you prick me, do I not bleed? If you tickle me, do I not laugh? And I think everybody has issues in life, and everybody has ways of trying to cope. And I think it's when those in the public eye come out and say, okay, this is stuff which is affecting me. These are the very... It's always important, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. My father got on quite well with Paul as well. They didn't speak as much. I mean, Maurice and but Maurice and Ringo were great friends. They've all the way up until Maurice died. They were coming to each other's houses. They were really good friends. And my father only really became close to with Paul in the last. Actually, it was right after Maurice passed away, because they got together to record some tracks in honor of Maurice. It was going to be a concert in Hyde Park, and they were going to bring it out as an album as well. And events happened, and that sadly never happened. But those recordings are still there somewhere.
No, I would be fantastic. We should live all of that. I mean, talking about the big parks, and I always say that the parks are the lungs of London. I'm currently in St James's Park, and which is
Are you having a
glorious.
ramble in St James's Park?
I'm having a ramble, a little bit of a ramble, and I'll tell you what about.
Cool your head and fire your heart.
I thank you. It's always a joy. It's always a joy. But what I love about it, RJ, is when people talk about keeping their social distance. I think the whole world has been warned that Andrew Eborn's on the loose because it's just me. There's nobody else here. It's quite extraordinary. I mean, we're here live on behalf of KTT and GSI in one of the most beautiful parks in one of the most beautiful cities in the world on our most beautiful day, and there is not a soul other than me. I mean, St James's Park, as you know, has been bustling in central London. Absolutely stunning, isn't it?
Since the 1600s for having it was one of the first nightlife areas before there were clubs that you could. You can have clubs where men and women could mingle as well, and that was one of the main spots where people would meet.
And absolutely so. And what I love as well, they were. You might remember that the Russian ambassador, he gave a wonderful present. Do you remember what he gave into St James's Park as a gift? And as it's my birthday coming up, all those listening will no doubt be tempted to give me a similar gift, because in 1660 gave as a present for St James's Park a gift of pelicans. Which is a fantastic song. I'll see if I can track down the pelicans here in St James's Park, and any of you tempted, my birthday's on the 7th of July, and I can tell you I've never been given a pelican, so everybody asks me what should you get me. A pelican would be wonderful. What's your most unusual present, RJ?
That's the most unusual present.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about that one, but I'll definitely because of course this is an ongoing show. I'll come back to you on that one.
I love it. Well, nothing's. I'll tell you what. I'm going to have a belly can of pelicans for my birthday. It's going to be fantastic. That'll be my birthday of choice, because St James's Park, and I have never, ever, ever seen it quieter. You're joining us live here on behalf of KTT and GSI on a very special day where we took you through the Marcel Marceau's tour of London this morning, where for those who could those of you listening in beautiful silence, we might retrace our steps. Are you happy to stay with us, RJ?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll retrace our steps because it was so fun.
Your hands.
Absolutely, that's rather good. We'll stay with us as we walk through London. So the Marcel Marceau's version we did this morning, and for those of you who'd like to hear that soundtrack again and some of the fantastic stories, we had a really good rehearsal then, didn't we? We love it. It's all good. But it is quite extraordinary. St James's Park, and I've walked about 40 miles now already, but I was well looked after at the Langham Hotel. We also went, as we say, we saw the cinema, the Regent Street Cinema, with a fantastic exhibition there. There we went down to the Speakeasy Club, and that, as we say, that's where lots of people, including your father and your uncles, used to gather on 48 Margaret Street. And it was the scene, the promo of the film New York Mining Disaster 1941, was in fact filmed at the Speakeasy Club. Do you remember, did you ever go and visit Speakeasy Club?
The Speakeasy Club, no, but I know a lot about it because my father had spoken about how they, see, in between the recording sessions of the filming, they were going into this hallway near there's a stairwell where they were using the acoustics to write new songs. So they actually were penning songs in between on the go at the Speakeasy.
They always say that those who don't remember the Speakeasy Club are those who actually went, because I think many a night would have been spent at the Speakeasy Club, which many a night have people forgotten. As they say, he was on a gin diet. I think he lost 2 weekends. It's got to be good. But well worth it. But we're here. If you're joining us live, I've got the fantastic RJ Gibb. And for those who didn't manage to lip read earlier, we have him live and unleashed here on KTT with GSI, and I'm in a deserted St James Park, and it's really rather pleasant. I'm going to walk you up Horse Guard Parade. We're going to revisit a lot of the sites that we did this morning on the Bee Gees Legacy Tour, and what's going to happen is RJ is going to recount his stories. I think what happens is there are so many stories. The world is sort of turning around and saying, hang about, we can't have two of them at once, we'll shut them both up. And I think the internet collapsed in a quivering mess. But the reality is you're back live with us now, which is all very good stuff. And we've got lots of fans around the world. And Heather's loving the tour. We've got Tommy's with us as well. Thank you, Tommy. And he recorded Too Much Heaven. Paul recorded Too Much Heaven, absolutely. Anne Smith, you're absolutely right. There are no tourists at all. It's an extraordinary. And Anne Smith worked at Buck Palace. She was there for the Queen's Jubilee in 2002 and was front of house manager for two of the concerts. Good heavens, well done, Anne. We've also got Tina. Hello, Tina's joining us. She's glad she had the chance to dine at Montpellier a couple of times, and so sad that it is closed. You're absolutely right, we had some fantastic time. Marion's with us as well, and you're right, Marion, it's great to be able to hear not just me prattling on, but also you've had the wonderful RJ, and we also had Mike at the Bomber Command Memorial as well. And the idea for these sort of sessions, we're trying new things, and one of the great things that we learned is that if I record this on my mobile phone and people phone me every five nanoseconds, which tends to be what happens, then it cuts out all the sound. So what we do is, thank you, I use a different device, but always a joy. But when I do my solo walks in the morning, the thrill of it is really quite fun, and it's so much fun to have so many people joining us live here on Octopus TV, brought to you especially by KTT Legacy and GSI and the fantastic Marion. And do, if you've got particular places you'd like us to visit, particular people you'd like us to interview, do let us know. We've had over 500 interviews during lockdown. Now that I'm unleashed, heaven knows what's going to happen, but people I think have realised that this is going to sort that out as well. Now, Marion quite rightly asked, will we ever hear Paul's Too Much Heaven? And I can let you into a secret that if you promise not to tell, everything might be possible. All sorts of things are happening at KTT, and we're going to drip feed that with you. I think, RJ, are you still there? I think RJ, we're getting back on the line as well. We're phoning him in, and if you're joining us, we're live here in St James's Park, brought to you exclusively by KTT Legacy and our wonderful friends at GSI. If you joined us on the tour this morning, it was an absolute treat for the eyes, if not for the ears. But you can hear us now, can't you, which is always very good. And Marion loves secrets. Well, Marion is our repository of secrets. Marion is the only person that we will let know those secrets, and she will know live and exclusive on behalf of KTT and GSI. We love GSI. We love GSI so much that only GSI and Marion will get to know our most intimate secrets. You'll hear it live first and unleashed. Make sure you subscribe to Octopus. Go over to YouTube at an appropriate moment, because we always have sound on Octopus. There might have been a reason there was the Marcel version this morning. We always have sound on Octopus, and you'll be able to join us as we go on our daily walks, not just for London, but all over the place. And Anne Smith has been with us all the time. Anne, you are a trooper. Now, I promised you some pelicans, and I spoke to you about the royal family, and I have managed to track them down. Here we go. Now, this was a gift from the Russian ambassador. Look at that. And you were asking what I would want for my birthday. Well, a pelican wouldn't go too far wrong. What do you reckon? James Pratt is asking for the swans. I can do swans, but pelicans are a bit rare, and this was a gift from the Russian family. We've had pelicans here. A pelican can have more in its bill than its belly can. I think that's what they say. Anne's been with us all the time. I'll get you a pelican for your birthday. Thank you, Heather. And there's not just one, not just two. There's a couple of pelicans over here. This one's basking in the sun, and they are quite extraordinary birds. James was asking for some swans. Well, your wish is my command, and over there As long as we don't lose signals, but we gain some signets. Come on, this is just clickbait all the time, isn't it? How gorgeous is that? There's some swans with this season's cygnets making their way out of lockdown. They've been locked in their shells for a number of years, and they've just been released this morning. I can tell you I was here nice and early, and we saw the hatching of the swans, so quite incredible. If you are joining us, you're joining me live, Andrew Eborn, here on behalf of KTT and the wonderful Marion Adrianson and GSI. And down here we have extraordinary birds, aren't they? Me and my shadow. There's my shadow. Hello. Give you away. Oh, look, it's coming over. It looks a bit hungry. I have nothing for it, but what an extraordinary bird. And what I'll do, as you've just got these images, I'll get RJ back on the phone. Ah, Viv Stokes. No, it wasn't freezing. I was trying to get RJ on the phone, so we were having a look there. So every now and again, what we try and do, because this is just on my humble little phone rather than the normal crew of 30,000 people that I have following me. So I thought it's just a little informal. This is what they call the Brexit version of broadcasting. This is me on my phone. And the trouble is, when it's on the phone, every time somebody phones me, what happens is that the sound disappears. So this morning, everybody was just going crazy. They all wanted to phone and say, "Oh, I can see you, you're on the telly, we're all joining in." And as a result, we lost a little bit of sound. As I say, it's the Marcel Marceau version of the guided tour through London, but we will do it. Can you hear me now? Everybody can hear me and I'm not frozen yet. Oh, you've done really well. Thank you. Right, we're resuming and I'm delighted. Hello, Anne. Lovely to see your phones ring. That's what happens. But can you hear me? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, then I'll also bring in my great chum. You can. Thank you for the love hearts you keep sending. Then if you're happy to stay with us, I've got the wonderful RJ Gibb on as well. Viv, say good morning, good afternoon, hello, wherever you are in the world, to RJ Gibb. How are you, RJ?
Very good, Andrew.
Always. Thank you for joining me again. It's been at least a nanosecond since I last spoke to you. So we can hear, and RJ can hear as well, so fantastic. So what we're doing, RJ, I am walking around, we just walked past the cabinet room. We have been past a deserted St James's Park. We went to a deserted Buckingham Palace. We went to a deserted Cabinet War Rooms. And everybody but everybody knows that Andrew Eborn is out. He's been released. More scary than anything you could possibly imagine in lockdown. And so I'm out. And everybody else has decided to stay back in. So here we go. Got to get back on here. I'm going to take you along to some more of the tourist attractions, and you can fill us in on some of the details, because I think if I take you down here, this is Westminster Hall, and I know that this plays an important part for a lot of people. And we're going to go to the Houses of Parliament. I'll take you up the tower, those who'd like to go. Big Ben, which actually refers not to the tower, but to the chap who rings the bell at the top. So good old Ben, we'll have a word with him, see how he's doing. But we're walking up here, RJ. Talk to me about Westminster and the importance to your father and uncles about here.
Yeah, no, we've been excited. You're talking about the Palace of Westminster itself, yeah?
Yes, I'm coming along. Well, you could, whichever you like, but I'm round that area. So in fact, I'll let you into a little secret. I'm just by the Westminster Arms, which is just by the Queen Elizabeth II Centre, and it's this wonderful pub which dates all the way back to whatever. And we've got the central hall in Westminster, Lewisham Street, which looks deserted. Remember Lewisham Street? I'm just going to have a look at this pub, because I reckon our regular viewers, Queen Anne's English dining rooms, the Westminster Arms, but sadly if you have a look inside, there you go, it's empty. There you go, it's empty because it's not yet opened. I mean, that's the side. There's a dog.
The Palace of Westminster.
Yeah, so we're just by Westminster. So tell us a bit about Westminster Hall and the importance of this area for your father and your uncles.
Well, I can start maybe from I can work backwards. The Westminster Central Hall was where we had the premiere of the Requiem for Titanic.
And that's where we are right at the moment. Beautifully timed. This is like a real broadcast. We're at the Methodist Central Hall. And this was the premiere of the Titanic Requiem.
Yeah, which we're now in talks again as well about resurrecting that. And of course, it had holograms before. It was a hologram show with the orchestral Requiem Mass, Latin Mass. But I think these days, if you're gonna have a tour, you can have one that's just purely the music, for pure. But then we also have AR that we're dealing with at the moment, augmented reality technology, where you can see things like holograms, in the hall while you're watching the orchestral performance. So we're going to be experimenting with a lot of that, and hopefully we'll get it back up soon. But that whole area. I mean, I remember going to the Palace of Westminster with my father. Used to visit the old Parliament as well, the bell itself. I mean, have you been up? Have you seen Big Ben?
Oh, it's amazing! What a lad! Yeah. We had a couple of pints together around the corner. It was brilliant.
No, the bell at the end.
I know what you're talking about. I know, absolutely. It is. It's quite a lot of steps, isn't it? All the way to the top. I mean, you have to be very brave to climb all the way. When did you last go up?
I remember they had these old pennies, and they had to be the old ones. We knew exactly the weight, but it needed to be that they had put on the counterweight, for the bell, so that because Big Ben, when it was created, it never chimed exactly into the tone that they needed. So they fixed that just by putting the little pennies in just the right amount in a stack on top. It's still there. They still use it.
Quite amazing, isn't it? And
that's much more, but yes, that's how it was.
And we're now outside Westminster itself, and we're looking over at the Westminster Methodist Hall. I mean, it's a stunning building, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yeah. No, it's. I mean, are you able to go inside?
Unfortunately, all the doors are locked. But whilst I can pick locks, I think with an audience of millions, which we currently get, they'll probably never forgive me. I'll tell you, however, this is Dean's Yard, which leads into Westminster. How are you? You're live on KTT. Okay, you can come and talk to us. That's okay. Keep socially distanced. You're live to the world. Tell us what your name is. Fantastic. Nadia, lovely to see you, Nadia. And how's life been for you in lockdown?
Busy.
Busy?
Always busy, yeah.
This is busy? This is a bit quiet, isn't it?
I mean, around us it's quiet, yes.
Yeah, incredible. And behind here you've got the school as well, haven't you? The Westminster School. And how old is the Westminster School? It's very old. It dates back for many times, because they also have very famously the Westminster choristers who sing in the Westminster Cathedral. And are you starting to see people are coming back, or it's about this time, be really busy with the tourists, wouldn't it? Yeah. But certainly going to get a little bit better. Anyway, look, thank you. It's lovely to see you. I'll let you get back to your hard work, and you take care. Bye. There you go. So, what was that? Sorry, RJ? Oh yes, we can get a microphone. No, she was just telling me this is the busiest they've been for a long time, and I'm looking around at the empty streets, and you think it's a tough old life, really. I'm going to take you along to Westminster Abbey. Tell me about Westminster Abbey and your memories with your father and your uncles in Westminster Abbey.
Oh, I mean, because we're such history buffs, it's always an absolute joy to go to Westminster I've been there multiple times. I go there. I brought my children.
Good morning. We're live on KTT. Can I just walk to the door? You've got no filming. No filming. Are you Geraldine? Nice to see you. We can film up here. That's just outside. That's fantastic. There you go. So wonderful. We're just making the rules and regulations, because the last thing you want to do is to mess with rules and regulations. So it's always important, as you join us here from Westminster, there's no filming inside, unless somebody wants to get married. If you want to get married, we'll come along and film you then. But this is the outside of it. So yes, you were saying, RJ, your memories of Westminster Hall and Westminster.
Well, Westminster Abbey, yeah. Well, apart from the myriad people from British history that are in there, all the kings and queens, Henry VII, there's cloister, the cloister
is there where